Hey there, friends. I think it's safe to say that in every shooting, there is a certain element of emotion, right? I don't think people are shooting each other, coming to the conclusion to pull a trigger and shoot somebody else based on complete non-emotion, right? But in some instances, there's way more emotion involved. But first, if you guys would go take a look at my friends Gideon Optics. Gideon has some really affordable optics out there, multi-purpose optics. I've actually been running one of their mediator optics on one of my shotguns here recently, and this thing is taking the full beating of everything. But they have a long line of other ones. In fact, I think they're going to be introducing some new optics at SHOT Show this year as well. So go check out my new friends at Gideon Optics. Check them out at GideonOptics.com. Again, GideonOptics.com. So this story in Illinois takes place where this father's daughter comes home at 2 a.m.-ish in the morning, badly beaten. Now, I haven't seen pictures, but I'm just taking the word of the news reports that she was badly beaten, visibly, obviously beaten up. Comes home to her parents' house, and the father goes and, quote-unquote, hunts down the boyfriend who beat the daughter up.
Yeah, it happened right here in the middle of the street. Police say a woman badly beaten shows up at her parents' house. Her father then chases the man accused of hitting her down and shoots him in the middle of the road. I talked to two neighbors off camera who say they saw this shooting happen off North 6th Street here in Wood River, right by Lewis and Clark Junior High. One told me after he heard a pop, he stepped outside and saw an older man standing over the younger one, pointing a gun at him, and then heard the younger man begging him not to shoot. He says he then heard the older man say, "That's my daughter, she means everything to me," and then shot him. Others chiming in on this story saying they don't blame a father for wanting to defend his daughter.
It's hard to blame a parent. I mean, you know, there's 5 girls in our family, cousins, and the boy, and I can see all our dads going after him, you know, but gun, no. Beat him up. Don't shoot him.
Police have not released the names of the men involved in this double shooting or if anyone will be charged. We're working to get more information.
Now, man, there's a lot going on right here. A lot going on. To me, this seems like a pretty cut and dry case going into a court system. Now, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not trying to pretend that I'm one. What I'm telling you is when you have a father that, even though under the condition of his daughter being badly beaten, now makes the conscious effort to leave the home, search for the criminal, not calling law enforcement. I think that's important that we include that. Do I think that would I have done the same thing? Probably. I'm just saying. He didn't call law enforcement. He hunted the guy down, shot him. The news reports claim that they shot each other. But you heard in the news report where it said that the person heard a pop, then the boy was laying in the street. I say boy, the young man, the abuser, the alleged abuser, laying in the street, father standing over him, and then the kid's begging for his life, and the guy shoots him again. The father's injuries, because they were both taken, one was airlifted and one was taken in an ambulance. They were both taken to the hospital. The dad, I'm assuming, was the one in the ambulance because he didn't appear to be hurt that bad. The extent of their injuries has not been disclosed. In fact, the names haven't been disclosed. What you saw in this news report is probably the closest we've come to any real details. At least we have the location and things like that. But there's so much going on here, and I want to talk a little bit about that because I believe that we as gun owners and carriers on a daily basis have a very huge responsibility. Now, let me just say this. I'm not taking up for or faulting the dad. And let me tell you why. A couple of reasons why. Number one, this didn't happen to me. I don't know how I would react had this happened to me. Pretty sure how I'd have reacted. Pretty sure. But I don't know because this has never happened to me. I think we also have to look at not justifying the girl getting beaten up. Let me say that disclaimer right now. I'm not saying the girl deserved to be beaten up. I don't think men should put their hands on women. However, women do things sometimes to provoke men. Hitting them, spitting at them, throwing things at them, maybe pulling a gun on them. Again, there are a lot of things we don't know about this case as to what led up to this. Again, let me say this. Am I saying it was okay for the boyfriend to beat up the girl? No, I don't know the circumstances that led up to that. In fact, the girl's not even said why she was beaten up, right? She's not even come out and said that. So I'm just saying, I think the public has a tendency, just like in divorce cases and custody with children, to always take, or I shouldn't say always, to mostly take the woman's side. And I don't think that's fair, especially in this world that we're living in, where everybody wants to say that everything is always equal. So we have to make sure that we understand there are things that led up to what happened before the father ever got involved. And again, if you think I'm justifying beating the girl up, you're just flat wrong, and there's nothing I can do to help you because I just did everything I could to explain. But I think it's fair to say we have to look at all the facts, right? Now, regarding the father, I think what is going to hurt the man in court is going to be the very fact that he did indeed leave his house, search for the guy without calling law enforcement, because all indications are that he did not call law enforcement. He went and hunted the guy down first. And I hate to use that word hunted because that throws a whole nother dynamic into it, but he went and searched for the guy. Clearly, I don't think he intended to kill him, because if he were standing over him and he shot him again and the guy is still alive, either he used a super low caliber firearm, or he's a very bad aim, or he did not intend to kill the guy. Again, does any of that matter? Probably not in a court of law. Now, I will say this. I have seen instances where, I know it's called a crime of passion type thing or whichever. Those emotions that the dad is feeling as a parent of his own child, regardless of why she was beaten, right? He's just seen his own flesh and blood beaten to a pulp, let's say, beaten to where it's physically obvious that she was manhandled. I've seen court instances where people have gotten off. I've seen instances of murder gotten off, and I'm not going to replay the situation I'm talking about, because every time I do, YouTube bans my video. But you'll remember a father down in Baton Rouge whose son was raped and molested, and the pedophile was flown back home, and the father premeditatedly met him at the airport and took the guy's life. He got off based on temporary insanity or some kind of plea similar to that, based on the emotion of what had traumatically happened to his own child. So there is that defense that lingers out there, right, for a parent. In this instance, it's going to be tough. And another thing that's going to be tough, this was in Illinois, right? What a horrible place for something like this to happen. Again, not trying to take a side, but I don't think that dad's actions will be viewed the same in the state of Illinois as they might be somewhere else. Now, granted, a lot of Illinois is very conservative. You just have that dung heap that is Chicago that controls the voting populace in that whole state, because it is such a highly populated area. So out of fairness, he possibly could find a fair jury of his peers in other parts, but if it's anywhere near Chicago, I don't think he's going to find a fair jury of his peers. So this is going to be a tough one for him in that particular state. Another thing that, again, it may depend on the type of court that he gets thrown into, what type of judge he has, a liberal judge, conservative judge, whichever. Because, as we saw, he was right next to a school. So this will be considered a school shooting. I know it's stupid. I know it's ridiculous for us to even think that. It will be considered a school shooting. If our friends over at Gun Violence Archive have not already labeled this a school shooting, within the coming days I will show you proof, because they likely will. This was within 500 yards of a school, like in the middle of the street, right next to the school, so that's going to be considered in a school zone, right? The guy had a gun, the guy shot somebody. The penalties could be harsher based on where he is. So a lot of stuff going on this one. I mean, for many reasons, I wouldn't want to be in this dad's shoes. I don't want my child beaten. I don't want to feel like I have to take the law into my own hands at sometimes. And look, the dad could have been thinking somewhat clear-headed, even thinking that the law is not going to do anything for this guy beating my daughter, so I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? I mean, it may have not been just him doing this through a rage. He might have been thinking, this guy's going to get off, he's going to walk, so I'm going to make sure that if he walks, he at least walks with a limp. Could be what the dad was thinking. Again, all speculation at this point, but what I'm trying to do here is get us thinking. What would you have done if you were that father? And is it even fair for us to pretend to put ourselves in that type of situation? Because, man, I've really tried to think, if that were to have happened to me, how would I have handled that? And you know, it's a tough one. I mean, if I knew where the guy likely was, boy, it would have been hard to just call the police and stay home. Now, I probably would have called the police, and I probably would have called the police and said, this is where I'm going. You might want to beat me there, but this is where I'm headed. That might have been the thing that I would have used. I still probably would have headed there. And again, this is all speculation because I'm not in that situation. But I feel like law enforcement should have been notified at that point, because at least it seems like you're trying to get justice for your daughter one way or the other. Now, based on some videos that I put out last week and the week before, in shootings where there was a questionable reason as to why you pulled that trigger. In other words, a otherwise law-abiding citizen who was not a prohibited person carrying a firearm and then using it in a questionable manner. In this type of situation, what type of coverage, if we're still talking about the USCCA type stuff, which is insurance, and having attorneys representing you, what type of coverage do you feel like would be more beneficial at this point? Remember, USCCA said that the reason why they say that they're covering Alan Coley in his appeal process, even though he was criminally charged with something. So I'm not sure what that dynamic consists of. But nevertheless, if you're in a situation like this, and likely this guy will be charged. I don't see this. I don't see no charges being placed against this guy, criminally or civilly. I think the boyfriend will likely press charges. So would you rather have insurance, knowing that your insurance can't do anything if you are charged in a criminal investigation? Or would you like to have the different type of coverage? Because there are different types of coverage, and I'm going to do videos on this soon to show you guys the differences. But would you like to have coverage where you have attorney representation? In other words, that will likely keep you out of jail. Which type would you prefer? Again, videos on this coming up. Probably by next week I'll have a video up on this, because the Alan Coley thing certainly brought a lot of things to light. There is a misconception out there that all these companies that offer a certain type of coverage offer the same things with different details involved in it. Well, they don't. Some are categorically called insurance, and some are having attorneys at your disposal when you need them. One covers you, one keeps you out of jail. And I'm certainly oversimplifying this, but this brings up this debate that needs to be had, so that you do not get to a certain point where you call that phone call on a card that you've been given by somebody who's covering you, and you think you have a certain amount of coverage, a certain type of coverage. Come to find out you don't, based on your actions and what took place. I think these are conversations that aren't being had, that need to be had to make sure that you are taken care of. Now, am I suggesting that one is better than the other? No, not really. Personally, I think that you should have both. That's just my honest opinion here. I feel like I want to have, from a civil standpoint, I don't want to go in the poorhouse. At the same time, I don't want to go to jail. The big house. I want to stay out of the big house, and I want to stay out of the poorhouse. So again, a lot of conversation will be coming up on that. Hopefully by next week, I'll have a lot more details. Some of the companies that I've reached out to give their opinion and their, I guess, understanding, description of their type of policy, they're not talking to me right now for whatever reason. I think they're butthurt about a video I put out last week, and some people got mad about it. So whatever, get over it. I would love to know your thoughts down below. If you were in this type of situation like this father, what would you have done? Do you feel like the father acted the way he should have acted? There's two ways to look at it. Wearing his dad cap and then wearing his, I guess, responsible gun owner hat, right? Is there a difference in how you should react? I have my own opinion. I'd love to know yours in the comment section down below.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.